Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about unwritten rules. And well, basically, this topic is because I was watching a video on like the different types of cultures, like the Spanish, the people from Spain culture, the Russian culture, comparing that to the American culture, the Mexican culture. And basically, there are a lot of videos on this on YouTube. So you can just type on YouTube like unwritten rules in Russia or unwritten rules in Spain, right? And in the video, the people will explain to you what you should or shouldn't do, not because it's illegal, but because the culture is like that. So if you break these unwritten rules, basically you will be shamed. People will look at you weird. You'll feel bad. You'll feel like excluded, right? Now, first I want to talk about some law terminology, which if you study law, you see this in the beginning, like probably in the first semester. And there's this notion of norms, right? So norms is kind of like a synonym for rules or laws. And they say, like in the first semester, they explain to you that there are different types of norms. There are religious norms, there are social norms, there are moral norms, and there are legal norms, right? Now, the legal norms are obviously the law, right? For example, if you kill somebody, you go to jail type of laws. Um, the religious norms are the ones that basically talk about the afterlife, right? Like if you behaved, you go to heaven. If you didn't, you go to hell, right? Or God will punish you, or you need to be good because otherwise you will offend God and His Ten Commandments, right? But that's for Christianity. Obviously, every religion has their own very specific norms. Moral norms, which have to do, I would say, more with social, but moral, I would say, maybe have to do with like the human rights, international human rights rules. Excuse me, like the right to freedom, right? The right of expression, like maybe these type of what's correct, what's incorrect, right? And obviously moral dilemmas and the social norms, which have to do, I think this one is does have to do specifically with the type of society or culture in which you're living in, right? Now, these are clear. To a certain extent, they're clear, right? Like you can ask a person, like, what should I not do or do here? And they can tell you, right? Now, the unwritten rules, I think, are a little unclear. And this is because if you haven't lived outside your country or outside your culture, you're not going to even know you do these things. For you, it's like breathing air. It's the most natural type of thing you can do. And I think when people travel from one part of the world to another part of the world, or from one culture to another one, they experience this phenomenon known as culture shock, right? Which is where you basically see how things are different to the place that you used to live at. And that's when you're like, oh damn, like I need to observe, right? They say like when in Rome, do as Romans do, or something like that. You need to observe and then you need to adapt, or you're not gonna like it and you're gonna generate resistance to those changes, right? That you need to make within yourself. So some examples here, I'm gonna get into a couple of examples. The Spanish, for example, in Spain, they close. I guess they open their stores and their restaurants. They open them very late. I think they mention in this video that they may even open as late as 10:30 in the morning or 11, and then they close for 3 hours from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. because that's the time that they eat at, right? So they go, they eat, and then they come back from like 5 to I think 8 or 9. But I think one of the reasons why in Spain, like and again, this isn't like all over Spain. This is just like probably in the big cities, or maybe it is all over the country, because the culture is kind of like that. But yeah, I just want to clear that out because I could be like generalizing, but this is according to the video, right? That I watched. So they close their shops from 2 to 5, and they go out to eat, right? And then they have like a siesta or a walk. A siesta is a nap. Um, or like for example in Mex, I was watching this other video where they were talking about how in Mexico you need to say good morning when you, even if you're gonna ask for directions, right, to some stranger in the street, you still need to say good morning. If you don't say good morning, and you just come up to the person and say, hello, can you help me with this? They're gonna see that as rude. And that's an unwritten rule, right? It doesn't say anywhere like in the Mexican Constitution, or there's no law, or there's no social, I would even say, if you were to ask a person like, do you have to say good morning when you greet someone like in the street, they would probably say like, what? But then they would do it, right? Like automatically. It's something that's so natural to you, like I said, like breathing, that they're not even aware of it, right? But yeah, that's like something. In Mexico, I was watching this other video by a Russian, this Russian girl, and she was talking about like how in the US they do small talk. She was comparing like the Russian and the American culture, and she was saying, I guess they are pretty serious in Russia. Like in the United States, I think it's common for people to smile at each other, like strangers in the street just smile. You know, I guess in Russia that's a big no-no, because it could even be taken as a sign of complicity, or like something's going on there. So obviously, small talk with like a stranger on the bus, like, hey, how's the weather or whatever, is not done in Russia. So that's why this person was saying that in the United States, that's something that Americans will do, right? And I guess because there's like a level of trust, they'll do this, they'll talk with each other about just any topic and leave it at that. But I guess this Russian girl was saying like she felt like these people were trying to be friends with her or something, but it's like, then she said she came to understand that it was just something they would do casually, right? Which in Russia, I guess they didn't, which I'm pretty sure in other parts of the world, some cultures may do it, some may not. I think the the differences between Russia and the United States culturally are pretty interesting to analyze, and they're kind of hard to categorize as in like, oh, this culture is more extroverted or this is introverted, because there are things that are kind of like, well, they're kind of both but they're not, right? So I think that's a pretty interesting topic of investigation, maybe. In sports, right? I was watching these videos like in basketball. There's an unwritten rule where if like the winner is like if you know who the winner is and you know who the loser is, like let's say the winner is winning by like 20 points, and then there's just like 20 or 10 seconds left in the game, you're supposed to just not do anything. You just kind of relax, which I think this may be something that you may do in sports in general, like maybe in soccer towards the end of a game. If there's a clear winner and a clear loser, you don't attempt to score, right? So what I was watching in these videos, which are pretty interesting, you just type in unwritten rules of basketball, and some of these videos will come up. First of all, there are different scenarios. There are two scenarios. The first one is that the loser will like take the ball away from from a player from the winning game, and will attempt to score, right? And that's just kind of petty, because they already lost. Like even if they get those 2 or 3 points in basketball, they still lost, right? Because the difference is like 20 points. Or there were the second case was when the winning, like a player from the winning team, in those like last 20 or 10 seconds, they will still score, right? And that's like adding insult to injury. Like here's another one, right? Like we already won by 20, 30 points, but now we won by 22, 23 points, by 32, 33 points, right? Like, and then typically that's because there's hostility. So then they'll like push around, or they'll kind of get in a fight. It's pretty funny, some of these videos. So yeah, there's an unwritten rule where you're just supposed to not do anything, right? And if you break that rule, you're obviously looking for trouble. In baseball, this one I thought was kind of interesting. When the ball gets hit by the batter, and it just kind of goes up, right? Like it doesn't get flown out like into the crowd or into the field. It just goes up. And so that generates a lot of confusion because it's kind of like, is it valid? Is it not valid? And I think this is an important characteristic of unwritten rules, some of them that could generate confusing moments, especially if under situations or circumstances where where those circumstances are rare. So nobody really knows what the rule is here, like what precedes. Like I saw in one of these baseball clips that this guy hit the ball, right? And the ball, I guess, landed like underneath a thing, like the thing was like this, yeah, like this, and the ball was underneath it, but there was just a little bit of room there for the ball, but the ball was there, and the guy, the catcher, he told the referee, like, it's right there, and the referee just kind of like took it out and was like, grab it, and he was like, no, because that's out, right? Like it's invalid, or so you'll get like a lot of these like confusing scenarios because the rules aren't clear, right? um, all right. Well, anyway, there are a couple other ones, especially when talking to someone. Like an unwritten rule is that when you're listening to someone, you either have to say things such as "uh-huh," "oh, yeah," "really," or nod. Right? I think nodding is demonstrating to the other person that you're listening, and if you don't do it, it's like you're not listening. So I think that's an unwritten rule of communication. Not oversharing, right? When you're in public. So if you're with someone, with friends, and then you just start talking a lot about your own problems or whatever, oversharing, this is considered like a foul pas in some cases, like a social blunder, right? Like you're not supposed to do these type of things. Social and informal situations such as de facto hierarchies, and I could really get into this. So these are things that are not officially recognized. Like, for example, in a group of friends, everybody's equal supposedly, but there is a leader, there is a funny guy, there is a shy person maybe. Like there are certain people in the group, right, of friends that have certain roles, and maybe when they don't fulfill their roles, like let's say the leader is not leading or doesn't know what to do, everybody will view that as weird, right? And I think this has to do more with like routine and the way you're doing things. Oh, and this is a huge one, which I think is unwritten. But all right, so you know how you drive on the right side of traffic, and the other person is on the left, right? Like like the oncoming traffic. When you're on the sidewalk, when you're walking on a sidewalk, it's an unwritten rule that you're supposed to walk on the right side, right? And the other person is also supposed to walk on their right side when they're coming the other way. Now, if there's a person coming from the right side, then you have to move to the left, right? And that's kind of weird. But there are some people, I think, that don't think about this, or maybe they're distracted or whatever. But it is an unwritten rule that you must walk on the right side of the sidewalk, right? So yeah, there are a couple other ones. Like it's just inappropriate behavior in general. Like I was watching this other video that talked about them, like how maybe like if you're a man and you go to pee, you have to leave a urinal distance between you and another man, right? Or how you're not supposed to date your friend's brother or sister, right? It's just a no. You can't, right? That's an unwritten rule because again, it's not explicit. It's not like you're born and your parents tell you, oh, you should never date your a friend's brother or sister, right? But you don't do it, right? So I think it's very interesting how all these unwritten rules, basically exist, but it's like they're, I think, some of the most natural, maybe culturally natural rules that just kind of like come out of nowhere. Like people will tell you, yeah, you're not supposed to do that, but they can't explain why or where it comes from, right? Or like the idea of like if you're a brother and your sister gets with a man, you're supposed to talk to the man, have the speech of like, if you ever hurt my sister, I'm gonna come and find you, or you're gonna have to deal with me type of talk, right? Like these type of things that are just there, right? So yeah, to finish off this video, I want to ask you, what are your unwritten rules? Because I think this is talking from a cultural collective perspective, But I also think that we as individuals have unwritten rules, things that we don't let other people get away with, right? Like for me, it's commitment. It's huge. If you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, then I just exclude you. I just eliminate you. I don't believe in you. I don't trust you, right? But if you say you're going to do something and you do it, and I see time after time again that you're committed, you're responsible, to you honor your word, then you're on good terms with me, right? That's an unwritten rule for me. So when you meet me, I don't tell you, hey, you must be committed, you must be responsible, you must honor your word. No, I don't say, and if you don't, there will be these punishments. Or I don't do that, but it's something that I believe in, and it's something that ultimately guides my behavior, right, towards other people. So what are some things like this with you? Some unwritten rules. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, peace.